Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It is the Burn Bootcamp podcast, and I am your host, Devin Klein, DK. Most of you know me as, and this is Ask Devin Anything, and we pulled from our grab bag of questions in Burn Nation, and your pressing questions get answered right here on the podcast. And I've got 5 of them today. Let's read off the 5 questions first, and then we will go ahead and answer them one by one. Really interesting mix today. The first one starts with Michelle from our Green Bay, Wisconsin location, which is doing so well. Shout out to the Arnolds, who are our franchise partners. If 90% of Americans have too much salt in their diet, and it's one of the 3 white toxins, which we talked about on the last Ask Devin Anything episode. This is where Michelle got this question from. Then why do we need salt in electrolyte drinks? I really like this question, Michelle. You, my friend, are paying attention, and you have found a very small distinction that we need to open up and we need to explore. It's a great question. Now, if 90% of Americans have too much salt in their diet, and salt is one of the 3 white poisons, then why do we have salt in our electrolyte drinks? And that is a great question. So not all salt or sodium is created equal. Just like in the 3 white poisons, not all sugar and flour is created equal. So I'm going to take this opportunity to break down the white poisons, or what I call the 3 white poisons: sugar, flour, and salt. And we'll really focus on sodium. Okay, so sodium is not made all the same, just like sugar and just like flour. We've established this. Okay, so sodium on the table table of elements is Na. Sodium chloride is NaCl. Sodium chloride. So sodium is actual like the mineral, and then sodium chloride is the processed version of sodium, and it's the sodium chloride, a completely different chemical compound than sodium. When we have too much sodium chloride, or that's what people mean by like table salt. Right? There's a difference between the mineral sodium and sodium chloride, the table salt. So too much sodium chloride can do a world of harm to your body. It really starts by disrupting the body's fluid balance. And, when the fluid balance is disrupted, it can lead to hypertension, and increased blood pressure is ultimately the cause of cardiovascular problems. And obviously there's a pathology to all of these things. So you want to stay away from the 3 white poisons in their manufactured state. So let's be clear. I'm not saying the 3 white poisons are sugar, sodium, salt, and flour. I'm saying that the 3 white poisons are processed sodium chloride, processed sugar, and bleached flour. So I'm going to go through each one of those categories pretty quickly with you today, although if you do want to know more about the 3 white poisons, how to make the distinctions from the naturally occurring version versus the big no-no, you should stay away from these 3 things whenever you can type version, and if you do consume them, very few and far between in your occurrences. If you want to maximize your health, and ultimately what I've recently learned is a great measurement for your diet and lifestyle strategy, which is your glucose measurements, and that has to do with sugar. So I slightly regress. Let me pick right back up at analyzing these 3 white poisons. So sugar, we'll start there, and then we'll go to flour, and then we'll finish with salt, since that's Michelle, what your question was about. So natural forms of sugar, the sugar that we need, that's essential to our being, the fructose sugar and the glucose that comes from fruit, the honey that's raw and unfiltered, the maple syrup that's 100% pure, the coconut sugar, the lactose, which is the sugar that comes from milk. All of these things are made in nature for purposes of being consumed by humans. Now, when you get sucrose or table sugar, which is purely like refined white sugar that goes through this like heating, extraction, bleaching kind of process, you also are very familiar with high fructose corn syrup, which is found in like the sodas and the processed foods, and you obviously want to stay away from those. That's, I think, becoming in like an intuitive thing. And then you have like artificial sweeteners, processed syrups like agave nectar and corn syrup and glucose syrup and all these different things. You want to stay away from the processed forms, and you want to lean into the natural forms. So not all sugar is created equally. Eat fruit, eat honey, eat maple syrup, eat coconut sugar, etc. Just don't eliminate. I'm not suggesting eliminate unless that's part of your mental makeup to be able to eliminate things easily and not affect you at all, but just severely limit, right? Just have discipline and control. Do I eat Chick-fil-A sandwiches? Those buns are enriched wheat flour, I believe, or enriched or blanched flour. I'd have to look that up. But it's processed flour. It's not the good kind. Okay, it's not the good kind. The good kind of flour, the natural kinds of flour, are whole wheat flour, sprouted grain flour. My favorite, Morgan's favorite, almond flour, arrowwood flour. Coconut flour is kind of Arrowwood powder is really good. Buckwheat, quinoa, oat flour. Like, you can cook with these things, and is it going to taste like a Chick-fil-A sandwich bun is going to taste? No, but that's not even food. You can have it. I'm not saying don't have it. Like every fourth Saturday. Like, limit yourself. Have some discipline around consuming these things. It's bleached, unbleached, enriched, stripped of natural nutrients, and then they enrich it, right? Enrich seems like a very, very like a positive word. They enrich it with synthetic vitamins, essentially. They enrich it with synthetic vitamins. So not all flour is made equal, so let's differentiate. And then finally, salt. You have natural versus processed. Obviously, again, the natural forms will stay on this trend that's like good for you, or is sea salt, this unrefined sea salt. Himalayan is getting a big trending moment, the Himalayan sea salt, but this is also something that goes back centuries and even more to have rich trace minerals in these Himalayan salts. The Celtic salt is a big one. Salts are that one category that they seem fatty, but also, kind of have universal, long-lasting principles. So, like unprocessed rock salt, Celtic salt, Himalayan, all those things. Processed salt, like table salt, which is iodized. It goes through these kind of ultra-refined bleaching. Often contains kind of like these caking agents, anti-caking agents. And if you need an anti-caking agent, maybe like maltodextrin, I think is a sugar version of like an anti-caking. Maybe I could be wrong on that. I know that there's a lot of stuff that goes into our food supply that just constantly gets a new rebrand scientifically, because scientists are smart and they realize that people are smart, and we start to catch on to what like maltodextrin is or whatever, or MSG or monosodium. I think it's monosodium glutamate, something like that. I'm no scientist. I like to know the backbone behind things as your personal trainer. I'd like to understand what I'm getting myself into. And so it's really conceptually those three things: sugar, flour, salt, three white poisons. There's the good for you natural kind, and there's the bad for you processed kind. I'm always talking about the bad for you natural kind. And hopefully, Michelle, that answers your question of the difference in terms of why I recommend we stay away from the three white poisons, but then why I have a replenish product. Because the three white poison version of salt is sodium chloride, and what we have in our replenish product is a balanced set of magnesium, sodium chloride, and other essential electrolytes to replace the sweat, the minerals that we lose from our sweat. That's why it's a during workout supplement. Our replenish electrolyte supplement is a during workout supplement. As you're losing and sweating out, I want you replenishing and gaining in. Okay. Question number 2 today, everybody. If you'd like to ask your question, by the way, podcast@burnbootcamp.com, and we will pull your answer right into the podcast. Casey from Mint Hill She asks, what's your take on using AI technology in workouts and fitness, and where do you see it going? Ooh, juicy topic. I am a nerd, and a lot of you know that. As you know, I'm a trainer first. That's how I started my career. I love personal training. I love helping you get to the next level, seeing inside of yourself what you don't quite yet see, and then revealing that to you, who you really are, slowly over time by introducing obstacles to you that I know you can handle in the moment that you may not think that you can. And this is what I love about training. But close behind that, I'm an entrepreneur, and I love business. And so when you add the two together, fitness business is really one of my huge passions. And as I continue to lead the way here at Burn Bootcamp and ultimately Burn Brands, which includes our activewear, nutrition supplements, which includes Burn On Demand, a kids camp program that we're piloting as a children's fitness program. So, I have to really know what's going on with AI. And I have done a lot of research. I've done my 1,000 hours of AI, and every week there's 2 or 3 hours worth of learning what AI is, and so I'm very qualified in terms of a user, not a creator or a developer of AI, to be able to give you my take on where it's at right now in the world in general, where it's going to be at in context of working out and fitness, and where do I see it going. So Casey from Mint Hill, shout out to the Burn Bootcamp Mint Hill location. People think that AI is like going to come in, swoop in, and steal a bunch of jobs, and I think that is fundamentally the wrong perspective. And here's why. I'll explain why I think that's the wrong perspective. And hopefully, if you are somebody that thinks that AI is going to take over the world and steal everybody's job, and it's going to be like net negative, then maybe like open up your mind to my opinion and see if it doesn't influence how you think at all. Here's what I think. You're absolutely right in terms of AI being technology that's going to not steal jobs, but displace jobs. Displace jobs, not steal jobs. AI will take some jobs away, meaning that it will take the dangerous jobs that people are tough, that are hard, that require long hours of physical activity, mundane, repeatable, activity like washing windows on skyscrapers or building houses or cleaning the streets or whatever you can, crops, agriculture. All of these people that are doing these jobs right now, maybe their job will be replaced in the sense of like the technology is now doing the job. But the reason I use the word displace is because not that technology and AI will steal your job. It might take over your job, but the amount of jobs that it's going to create, in combination with the amount of shitty and dangerous jobs that it's going to take over, I think will be a ultra huge like era of like the golden age era for America, for the world, because we will be able to be so much more productive. There's this thing called GDP, and GDP measures the productivity of a country in any given year. And when robots and AI are doing all of the mundane jobs, they're able to work 24/7. They're able to produce a higher output. Therefore, our GDP goes up in America. And when the GDP goes up in America and the Federal Reserve does not go crazy with printing money, we're producing more. Our deficit is going to go down, and our productivity is going to go up, and we will have more discretionary cash as a country to take care of people, and I think really get people to do the things that they've always wanted to do in the first place. Right? People want to create. We have a human imagination and intuition. AI will, I think, let's bring this into context, right? Into the fitness world. Here's what I think: any business that has the fundamental human needs as a core product or service, meaning that if love and connection, certainty, variety, growth, your sense of contribution, if these things are impacted by a business, that business in some way will survive and thrive, and it might look different. So let's bring that down to fitness and trainers. Listen, connection and love and belonging is a universal human need. That's why people don't still work out at the same clip they did at home as they did during the pandemic, is because fitness will never be something that you do in solitude. Solitude is the number one form of punishment. That's what you do when somebody commits a heinous crime. You put them away in solitude to think that people will lock themselves in their house and only get their groceries and only do their fitness. No, we need community. Community is at the root of who we are, and AI will not displace our need for human connection, therefore will not displace the human connection between each other and the love that we have for our trainer, and showing up to a place without technology, right? Without, we don't have screens on the walls. We don't have mirrors. Here's what's going to happen. The generation that made technology popular, which is the generation below us, I think it's Gen Z and Millennial, they are so negatively impacted by technology running their lives that the cool thing in 10 years is going to be to not be online, to not be addicted to your phone every 2 seconds. It's going to be taboo to be like, oh, look at that person in their car on their phone. What a loser, right? I don't think that way. I think society is going to think that way. I think society is going to look at somebody who is addicted to technology in the same way that they might look at somebody who's addicted to something else, because we now know the negative and adverse effects. If you look at cigarette ads from I don't know what time frame, let's say the 50s or 60s, back when the scientists were actually smoking cigarettes and the doctors were in the ads saying oh, have a cigarette, it's good for your health, right? Technology is going to be, in my opinion, or my, outlook here, it's going to be in a way demonized in the future. It will do a lot of things to really enable us, but once it's not so new anymore, and the birth of YouTube and Instagram wasn't just 20 years ago in 2005, then you start to let these technologies get mature. I think overall the addiction to them people start to frown upon being on your social devices. Now, if they're going to frown upon being in technology, then what will be amplified is the need for human connection and belonging and love, and to short, if you will, the technology. And I could be completely off here, but I just, and I could be biased, but I just don't see, at least, guys, I'm talking in the time frame of our lifetimes, right? And our children and probably their children's lifetime. In 1,000 years, 2,000 years, we're probably some hybrid biology, technology at birth. We probably have some way to integrate technology into our worlds. We communicate telepathically. We can hear each other's thoughts, and we don't have to speak. Our level of communication is through the roof, and our ability to process information. That type of stuff, I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows where we're going, but I will say that in this industry, I think we are primed for the AI era in fitness, in the fitness industry as a whole, because it's so fundamentally based on human connection, and human connection is only second in Maslow's hierarchy of universal human needs to self-actualization. So self-actualization, or the need to be congruent with the blueprint that you set forth for your own life, that is the most powerful force in human nature, followed very closely by the need for social connection. So at Burn, and a lot of fitness companies that pride themselves in community, we really triple click on both of those human needs. That's what this podcast is all about, the quest for self-actualization and getting the information that you might need in order to acquire a better, more maximized lifestyle. That's what this is all about. So I think we're safe here. Will we have AI trainers? For sure. 100%. That's just an evolution of what we already have, which are influencer trainers that train people online. I think the influencer, non-human connection part of this industry is going to be absolutely obliterated. I don't think there's going to be such thing as humans online training people that don't have connections, because what I'm going to be able to do as a brand is I'm going to be able to replace all of that kind of transactional, surface level, I transact money on a monthly basis for you to give me some plan. I'm going to be able to do that for free for you. And you're not going to need some person to like spend their time making some personalized meal plan for you, because I'm going to be able to know all your preferences, what you love, what you don't love, how your body reacts. I'm going to be able to look at your genome. I'm going to be able to look at like, I'll be able to like, you could spit in a cup and send it in, and I'll be able to tell you what your blood work is or something. It's going to be some crazy way for us to get very simple metrics. And then through those metrics, I'll be able to reverse engineer for you using AI, a meal plan that is most conveniently propositioned based on your work, your lifestyle, your kids, who they are, what needs they have, whether they have special needs or not. I'm going to be able to take every vector from your lifestyle and put that into a program and have a AI be assistant to our trainers and generate real-time meal plans for you, no problem, that are personalized to you, that instantly fix any hormonal imbalances that you're gonna have, that are gonna go on. I think nutrition AI is gonna shine the light on nutrition that we've had the medical model all wrong. The modern day AI is gonna do two things. It's going to say in the next 5 years, it's gonna say, hey, here's a drug that can fix that, and hey, here's how you can fix that without ever needing a drug. And that's going to be really cool because it'll revolutionize the sick care industry, the current healthcare industry, and it will birth a new model in healthcare in this country, which is it's proactive frontline support, which Burn is positioned to be right there, waiting for that moment, because that's what we've always believed in. So I use ChatGPT all day, every day. There's not a document, a strategy, an email I work on without it. It increases my productivity by at least 5 times. I am 5 times more productive than I used to be without it. I think it's just going to continue to do that. It's going to continue to take humans who are positive, optimistic about, and confident in their own abilities, and those people will not have fear of technology, and we will figure out how to use and leverage technology to make ourselves more productive. And we will definitely be doing that in fitness. But fitness is safe. If you're in the agricultural industry, factory, anything mundane, I think you should be excited too, because AI will replace your job, but it's also going to create much more abundance so that you can go out and do maybe that project that you've always wanted to do. All right, that's question number 2. Thanks, Casey from Mint Hill. My little take there on AI, technology, workouts, and fitness, and where I see it going in the future. If you want your question answered on the podcast, submit it right now, podcast@burnbootcamp.com. Number 3 is Patrick from a location, Oviedo, Florida. And Patrick asks, what's the biggest mistake you see fitness professionals make when trying to monetize the brand? Ooh, interesting question. Thanks for your question, Patrick. So he asks again, in case you missed that, what biggest mistake do you see fitness professionals make when trying to monetize their brand? Okay, so I'm going to start and bring us into the philosophy for a little bit. If you guys have followed me for any amount of time, you know that when it comes to philosophy and psychology and fitness, I try to marry those 3 worlds together to really help you to help reshape your belief systems, because that's the work that I had to do growing up in poverty, in abuse, in violence, in chaos. I had to answer some of those big questions for me, and I'm happy to help you work through the processes that I had to work through. Through all that, I uncovered philosophy, psychology, and fitness, and there's this concept in philosophy, and I'll explain that in a minute, but it's something that's important. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to answer the question. What's the biggest mistake that I see fitness professionals making? Got to be careful what questions that we're asking, because asking the right questions only gives you the right answers. If you ask the wrong questions, you're going to get wrong answers. So Patrick, I know this question because you're a Burn Bootcamp member and you bleed blue like me. It comes from a place of pure intent. But I think it's the wrong question. You know when the answer to the question is actually inside of the question itself, right? Like, what's the biggest mistake I see fitness professionals making when trying to monetize their brand? And it's actually that the biggest mistake I see fitness professionals making is trying to monetize their brand, right? Do you see that circular logic that kind of happens? In philosophy, there is a name for this, and it's escaping me for just a moment. What is that called? The tautological trap. Tautological trap. And so like another example could be, we are a customer service oriented company who prides themselves on excellent customer service. It's like, that's a loop, right? That's a logic loop. It's a circular logical trap. The tautological trap is what it's called, like a logical fallacy. Like, I'm asking a question, but at its core, that question really it really kind of answers itself, and it doesn't really ask anything. So, the question we should be asking is, in this context here, is, Patrick, it's how do we as fitness professionals create the most impact? That's the question. Because in this business especially, but in all businesses, your value, the asymmetry between the value that you offer and the cost of your services really matters. We call it stacking the cool at Burn Bootcamp, meaning that if our memberships on average are $140 every single month, well, we need to stack the cool of that value, and we need to make sure that that $140 represents a very low value proposition based on all of the value that we offer, all the cool that we stack on top of one another, from unlimited camp times, a universal membership offering, free child watch to have worry-free workouts, a personal trainer in a group setting to work with you one-on-one, focus meetings where we dive into your personal goals, nutrition questions, form, performance goals, whatever, right? So what I'm doing with all of this story of our brand is I'm telling you all the value, the features of that business, but also how it benefits you, which is the most important thing. And then I'm telling you, hey, it's $140. In your head, you're like, well, dang, dude, you gave me a lot of value there for a little bit of money. I'm in. And that's what a good business does. Gives an asymmetrical amount of value for what the service costs. So therefore, then the service cost is relative to the value. Therefore, there's no such thing as expensive, which is why the price competition, when businesses compete by lowering their prices, that the discount competition, never get involved in that as a brand, as a business. You never want to compete, because at the end of the day, if you're discounting and you're competing on devaluing yourself, then you're going to end up at zero, which is not a good place to be. So how do you monetize your brand? Is you get results for your members. You focus on getting results for them. Results become your resume. Everything that you do, everything that you say, everything that you breathe, everything you look at, everything you think about, everything you hear, all of that is input on how you make somebody else's life better, how you acquire knowledge, how you go through experiences, so that you can then transfer that energy and that experience to somebody else so that you can actually help change their life. I promise you, if that's your 100% focus, you're going to sell memberships. Then you're going to have to figure out how to do KPIs and all the business stuff and all that, which is great. But I want you to stay focused on adding value. Any business I've ever seen whose first question when they sit around the boardroom table and they say, hey, how can we make more money? If I hear that I'll tell you one thing, it will not be in my companies, because that's not the way that we think. We have a much more broad and long-term view. Hopefully that helps you, Patrick, and any of my entrepreneurs out there. I know a lot of the reason that some of you are working out so hardcore on a daily basis is to condition yourself to go harder growing your business. And so I'm glad that some of you are messaging in, podcast@burnbootcamp.com, asking business questions. Okay, we got 2 more left today. I got Leah. Shout out to Leah from Lakeway, Texas. Superstar. How are you? Hopefully everything is good with you in Lakeway, Texas, Leah. And you ask, how do you define success beyond just money, business, and growth? Leah, this is a question I think all of us need to ask ourselves. Are you ready, Burn Nation? Yeah, you got to ask yourself the following question. What does success mean to me? Success looks different to every single person, just as different as you are. Personality, characteristics, what you like, what you don't like. Your version of success, the definition of goals and achievement, all of that's going to be different for you. It's all going to be exactly how you define it, not how anybody else defines it. I believe that as we take a look at our own individual definition of success, it all leads back to one thing, regardless of how you define it. And so here is my thoughts, and you can have these thoughts and you can take them as your own. Your definition of success has to roll up to harmony. Whatever your answer is, the secondary question should be, is my life in harmony? Meaning body, mind, emotion, spirit, relationships, time, work, money. These 8 areas that shape who I am, my personality, my character, are they harmonious? Are they congruent? Or is my definition of success niched and siloed into just one? Let me tell you, making money is not going to make you happy. It's a part of the equation. Don't let anybody tell you it's not a part of the equation. Body, having a fit, healthy body, is that going to make you happy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You ever met somebody who is healthy as can be, but their relationship with their wife or husband is terrible? How happy are you going to be? Don't let anybody ever tell you it's just about being in shape. Get in shape first and you'll be happy. There's 8 areas in which we need to pay close attention to every day. I've mentioned them. I'll mention them again, and I'll continue to mention these until the day that I die, because it's timeless and it's classic and it's universal. And that's the only strategy we should implement, a strategy in which we plan on and intend to keep forever. And that's a daily ritual in each one of the categories: body, mind, emotion, spirit. Those are the you categories, the controllables. The outside of your control categories: relationship, time, work, money, the outside world, those matter as well, but you have less control. And when each of these pieces of the pie have a ritual or a habit every day that is moving them forward, now you're going to have what my definition of success is, which is ultimate harmony and a foundational, ritualistic habit in each one of those areas, which I will not repeat again, on a daily basis. And that's my definition of success. And then when I have harmony, I'll do whatever I want, when I want, where I want, with who I want, how I want. And as long as I approve of that, and that's congruent with my definition of success and harmony and congruency, I don't need anybody else's outside opinion. I don't need to walk around with eggshells, getting people to approve of what my daily rituals are. There's no one way to eat a Reese's. Is that what they say? There's no right way to eat a Reese's? Probably a bad metaphor for our purposes and the scope of this podcast. But you get what I'm saying, right? That the definition of success is yours. You own it. And mine, outside of maybe my need to leave my family in a better financial circumstance than I entered the world with, that's my outcome. And as soon as I got past that threshold, my daily ritual was make sure that I know my numbers every day. I just know them. I want to know how well I'm doing. I don't want that piece of my life to be in the dark. So the ritual I have when it comes to Leah's question, which is about money and business growth, although I define success much more holistically, I do have it as a part of my definition of success. You're talking about money and business, which to me that translates to money is exactly one of the things I talked about. which is different than your work, which could be your business or your career or whatever you do for work, whatever you show up and do every day, right? And these things are part of who you are, and you need to account for them. And it's not taboo. Well, maybe it is, but it shouldn't be taboo to talk about money and to want and to need. There's a need of money and there's a want of money. And so we can dive into this more if you're interested, everybody. Go ahead, podcast@burnbootcamp.com, ask your questions. Okay, last one for the day. Thank you, Leah. We have Stacy's question. This one comes out of Vegas, Centennial, Nevada. This is Stacy. What's up, Stace? She asks, how do you stay mentally resilient when business challenges arise? How do you stay mentally resilient when business challenges arise? Like I said, lots of business questions today. Stacy, thank you. Glad to round this one out. And here's my answer. When business challenges arise, I think about it in three of the following ways. Number one, I expect problems to arise. That's number one, is expectations, anticipation of the future. Number two, then I put myself in tough situations intentionally. And then number three, I constantly learn and read biographies and people in history who have handled adversity and how they've done it, and I studied that, and I used that to inform my own strategy. So mental resiliency, Stacy, what I'm telling you is that mental resiliency isn't something that happens. It's not happenstance. It's actually the outcome of being mentally sound is to be resilient. That's what a mindset is. A strong set of your mind will be one that is resilient. That is a characteristic of a strong mindset, meaning that you are able for long periods of time to go through struggle and challenge for a long period of time without being emotionally disrupted, without being depressed, going to shame, going to doubt. You stay in joy, you stay in peace, even when things aren't going your way. That's my definition of mental resiliency. So I expect things to arise. I put myself in mental situations, physical situations that are tough intentionally, and I'll learn from biographies. So I'll give you a little bit of color on each one, and then I'll wrap it up, and I'll get you guys out of here today. And let's do it on the first one. So expect challenges to arise. Anticipation is a key word for you. Anticipation for me of the future is why the success I've experienced actually is, because at one point my dreams were not reality, and my dreams became a reality once I put it on a piece of paper like a schedule. And then once I actually started executing my schedule, then my reality actually became like manifest. Like the reality was here. I could touch it. It was real. So things don't become permanent unless you start to put action to them. So I'm anticipating the future. When you anticipate the future, then you know, hey, I'm going to run into stuff that's going to be a challenge. And I'm going to need to be mentally prepared when the winter comes to handle the harsh winter. So I expect them to arise, and then when that harsh winter does come, I control my story. Because what you have control over is your emotions. You control your emotions. That's why it's part of the you piece of my 8 pieces of the human pie. There's 4 that are controllable, the you things, the inner world, the 4 that are uncontrollable, the outer world. The things that you can only control how you react. Right? So you get to control your story no matter what, whether it's directly or indirectly. So I'm controlling my story on a daily basis, right? When things happen to me that aren't desirable, it's thank you for this opportunity to learn and grow. Thank you for this thing that was put in front of me that showed me the right way, the wrong way to go about this thing. You know, you could easily let your story be like, oh, why me? But you control that. It's a really important thing to know. We can dive into how you control your story, how that correlates with the state of mind that you're in, and your narrative or your self-talk or your story always has a direct correlation to the state that you're in. You change the story, you change the state. Okay, you don't change the story, you remain in the same state. Right? So I can anticipate changes to arise, and then I can control my story of how I'm going to react when it actually does get here. And then when I was a baseball player, here's a tactic for you. When I was a baseball player, they said, hey, Devin, stay even. I'm like, stay even? What do you mean? I just got a home run hit off me to lose the game. There's 2,000 people booing me out of the stands. You're talking about stay even? I'm feeling depressed right now. I don't have it in me to stay even. And then on the opposite side, when I struck out the side to end the game, got a save, and we won the game 2-1, and 2,000 people are going, woo, David, you're the best. Don't feed into that either, because you're not the best. 2 games ago, you gave up a home run to lose the game. So stay even. Cheers and boos. You listen into the cheers, you're going to feed into that, and you're going to get cocky and egotistical and remove humility from your lifestyle. And you listen to only the boos, and you're going to get depressed, and you're going to start to think, I am the person that they are describing me to be. But you don't need the approval from those who are booing, and you especially don't need the approval from those who are cheering, because I control my state, and I control my story. So stay even. That's my point on number 1. Expect problems to arise, and when they do, don't react high and low. Stay even. It's a long season. The second thing was I put myself in tough situations intentionally. Quick story. Morgan and I go on a date retreat weekend to Bar Harbor, Maine. We love to do these things together to pour into our relationship bucket so that we can get away from work and kids and money and all that and literally just spend 3 days exploring different nooks and crannies in the world, where Bar Harbor is an amazing place, and it's in Maine. And it is like lobster capital there. And they also have amazing hikes. So I'm a huge, I want to just go out in nature and hike and do the toughest, most resilient, most mentally challenging thing that we can do, right? And Morgan, she likes that. But I'm definitely the one that's pulling us out to get on to the most crazy hike. So we find this place called Bee Cave. Now, Bee Cave's a free hike. And Beehive, I think it's called, actually. It looks like a giant beehive. There's bubble rocks everywhere, and it's actually a pretty difficult free climb. Probably a medium free climb. Well, Morgan's doing the medium free climb and dominating it, and there's rebars that you go up and you're hand over hand, and it's kind of wet, and it's in the morning, and there's dew all over the things, which adds complexity to it. So there's dew all over these round, really smooth, thin rocks, and you kind of have to pound from one rock to another. And she's kind of taking the path. And she looks back behind, and I'm over here in off the beaten path, over in the jungle doing crazy stuff, swinging from tree to tree, pounding from rock to rock like a little kid. And she's looking at me what the hell are you doing? And I'm taking the hardest path I can find. And she's I get it. Because you do that. You always go find the hardest path. You look for the hardest path. It's not path of least resistance. That's normal. That's what most people look for. We choose resilience, going back to number 1, because we know we're going to anticipate it. We know we're going to run into it. So therefore, voluntarily, I need to put myself in environments of maximum resistance voluntarily. So that way when I get to that hard thing that's involuntarily, that just hit you in the mouth out of nowhere on a Tuesday morning and you didn't expect it, like a loved one passing away, now I've got experience to fall back on. I know how to handle hard situations because I've been putting myself in them. So, what hard situations are you putting yourself in intentionally to build mental resilience? An easy thing to do, besides going to Bar Harbor, Maine, and going lobster diving and rock climbing and doing that crazy stuff, take a cold shower or go into a cold plunge. You don't want to do it. Nobody does. But by the time you do it, it's you telling yourself, mind, I don't care about the story you're telling yourself of why we're not getting in here. We're getting in here. Then it changes our state because we did it. And now we tell ourselves a different story. And that's something that's very easily accessible to you and free. And lastly, and then I'm going to get you guys out of here, is learn. I mean, the Klein family values, if you haven't heard me talk about these, they're very simple, but I'll share them with you now. One of them is learn. It's lead, love, learn, grow, play. Very simple. Lead, love, learn, grow, play. These are the 5 fundamental principles that I teach my children, and we talk about a lot underneath those 5. But to me, if I were to round up the virtue, learning is right up there after loving. And so constant biographies, learning how people have handled negative experience in their life and how they've bounced back before is really important. And what I've learned through and I'll just leave you with this, is that we all share the same kind of fundamental, 6 human needs. Tony Robbins has his take on the 6 human needs, which, by the way, were inspired by Abraham Maslow. You've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I most reference that, given it's the most popular. But, Maslow didn't make this stuff up, y'all. He got it from Kurt Goldstein, Kurt Goldstein was he was really into, self-actualization was his big thing, which is Maslow's top of the hierarchy of needs. So he researched Goldstein and said, Goldstein talks about self-actualization and hierarchy of needs, but he's missing all these things. So as you can see, then Goldstein was like Adler. Alfred Adler was his, and then William James was before him. And then you can keep going all the way back to like Aristotle, where Aristotle, I think it was eudaimonia. Eudaimonia was human flourishing, and they thought that virtue, I'm trying to recall, they thought that virtue, reason, and social connection were the 3 big, human needs, if you go back that far. So you have human needs. There's generally 6 of them. We each have 2 really important needs. And I think it's so important to learn, to have values built into your family of learning, to put yourself in mentally tough situations voluntarily, so that when they do spring on you, and they will, you are more prepared to handle them. So thank you, Stacy from Centennial, for your question about how to stay mentally focused, especially when business challenges arise. And last time I'll say this, if you'd like to submit your question, if anything here today really piqued your interest or you had a tangent, a lot of these questions are tangents off of other things we've covered in the past during the Ask Devin Anything episodes, podcast at burnbootcamp.com. We got producers Chelsea and Jordan behind the scenes ready to interact with you all. So thank you all for being here. Keep moving like we always do. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2. See you, friends.